We are back here on the Devlin Pirate Radio Show with the All Star Wars special. Yes, if you haven't heard, Star Wars has a brand new movie called The Force Awakens. It's going to be in theaters on December 18th, 2015. And I'm very excited about it. I do have my tickets pre-purchased. I'm in a theater at Silver City where I already have my seats, like they're picked out. And that's good because as much as I enjoyed waiting in line for movies, that was actually one of the fun parts, but we now live in a society that really just doesn't have the patience for that. But I am going to tell you a little bit of story about when I had to stand in line for Phantom Menace. Now this isn't, as I said, this isn't the first time that we've had a little bit of break from the movies. After the Star Wars trilogy, George Lucas was pretty set that he wasn't going to do any more, even though he did say that Star Wars was episodes 4, 5, and 6. And as a kid, I was a little bummed out by it, but I also liked it because, I used to, play with my friends and then eventually became into role-playing, and I get to do a Star Wars role-playing where I got to show everybody what I thought happened. I set it way, way in the future. And just so, if they did make the movies, I was still optimistic that they would. When it was announced that he was going to do the prequels, I was very excited. Now, I know a lot of people are not big fans of the prequels. I like the prequels, Yeah, I don't agree with everything that's in them, but I really liked what he did with them. I even like Jar Jar. I thought Jar Jar was okay. I just think I wish he was toned down a little bit. Not only with the bad voice stereotype, but I hated all the fart and poo jokes that George Lucas thought were needed to, make the kids enjoy it more. He never had to stoop to that in Star Wars or any of the other ones. But he felt the Phantom Menace should be a little bit more lighthearted because it was the light one in the series. But you know what? I can deal with all that. I actually don't like to talk the prequels with people because the diehards that are so against them, and one of the things I hate is when they go on about, I think the worst term that I've ever heard, and the word should never be used, but I actually hear people when they say, those movies raped my childhood. I hate that term. One, it's just a nasty term, but two, just because you didn't like the prequels doesn't mean it tarnished the original movies. It just means you avoid the prequels. I actually thought they were quite nice. Again, he did the special editions, and, again, I liked a lot of the changes, but some of them didn't make sense to me. I could go on hours about this, but, for every, Luke screaming when he falls, after getting his hand cut off too, which I couldn't stand, to that over-the-top musical number in Return of the Jedi, and the Audrey puppet that came out of the pit that Han was going to be thrown in. Stuff like that I just really couldn't stand. But for all that, they finally gave us, the snow monster complete. It just didn't look like a furry mask and an oven mitt. We got to see the scale of this guy, and boy, that was awesome. The Cloud City actually having windows made sense to me. This place was supposed to be beautiful and stuff, and I remember when I even saw it as a kid, I thought, you'd think they'd have more windows. So there was a lot of stuff I liked. I loved all the Tatooine stuff, how it went from just like the small thing to all this extra stuff. But what I want to talk most is when the prequels first came out. That was the special editions. Now it's time to get to the prequels. And just the day when I went to see Phantom Menace. This is back in the day where you used to camp out a little bit, and this was the movie that, I remember being in line a long time for Return of the Jedi, and Phantom Menace, we decided to make a thing of it. We knew we were going to be standing in line. They were having late night showings. There was a midnight one, there was a 12:30 one, and we wanted to get into one of them. So we actually started waiting in line at 4 in the afternoon. It was me, my friend Dave. I can't remember everybody who was with us, but I know my friend Dave was there. Probably had a couple other friends there. And my sister-in-law Cheryl was also there. And the awesome thing about it is, anybody who knows my sister-in-law Cheryl, I absolutely adore her. I love her. Just because she always is ready. Like, she brings everything you could possibly need. And if she doesn't, she'll go out and get it for you. And literally, it was really hot that day, and there were times that there were like these sporadic showers every once in a while. And Cheryl literally brought a tent. And we actually pitched the tent in line, and the people at Silver City said, yes, you can pitch the tent, but as soon as we tell you to take that tent down, because we're getting ready to start the line moving. So we had a tent, and it was awesome because we were standing in line, we're still in line, but we literally could go into the tents and away from, the heat, away from when it started raining, and we were reading magazines, we had little action figures that, we had from the movie. Again, sitting there playing with my little Jar Jar, but I have no idea if I'm even going to like the character. But, yeah, and it was kind of fun, and she brought, food and snacks, so we, go, because we couldn't have a proper dinner. And we got closer and closer, and then eventually came the point where they came in and said, okay, you have to put the tent down now because we're going to start doing the official lineup. Now, by this time it was night, and they let us have the tent up pretty much till about 10 o'clock at night. The other movies were starting to let out, some of them, and they were getting ready to let people in around 11:30. And we had looked, and we thought pretty much we're going to be, the lineup was actually pretty civil. And we were pretty close. We said we should have no problems getting into the 12 o'clock. But we had made a decision that we'd probably be okay to get into the 12 o'clock, but we should buy tickets for the 12:30 because we'd get to the theater quicker and be able to get good seats. It was a pretty smart move. So we took the tent down, and basically we started standing in line. Now, the one thing I love about waiting in line, and it's sad that you younger people don't get to feel this, because you get a real bond in the theater. Because you meet a lot of these people in line, and again, you're talking about Star Wars experiences. Now, a lot of people are jaded by the prequels, but you got to remember, we were heading to see the first prequel. So people just had nothing great to say about it. They're looking forward to it. Everybody's optimistic. And it was nice. You meet these people, and even if you don't know them, you just know them from being around. You're looking after one another kind of thing. Then around 11:30, they said that they were going to start opening up the box office, and that's when the rush came. And suddenly the well-organized lineup became chaotic because a whole bunch of people show up and basically start lining up. When you don't have a proper barrier to say this is the line, they keep coming up, and now it's like, oh, well, we just showed up. These cars that just showed up at 11:30 just started coming in, and they just kind of stand alongside it. So when they open the box office, they just jump in. And, basically all these people who've been waiting all afternoon to see this movie, there was no organization, and so they just start crowding in, and it becomes chaos. Now, another thing my sister-in-law Cheryl was wonderful at is she recognizes people. She knows the people who are in line and stuff. Now, Cheryl is a big girl. Like, she is a tough girl, and, sweet as pie, but she's not afraid to pull her weight. And she basically knows the people who have been waiting in line with us and the ones who are thing. And she makes note of them. And you can always tell she means business is when she gets on her Amazon warrior princess, and basically she puts her purse kind of over her shoulder, and now it goes from purse to this is my warrior satchel. And we know she means business. So when they're about to open the doors, she's thing. And the first thing I love that she does, and she did this for the special editions too when they reopened them, she grabbed a whole bunch of our coats and jackets. So she said, I'll get into the theater and I'll start laying jackets across the row. And we already have a battle plan. We've already talked about where we're going to sit. So we're ready. We're ready for this. And we're like, just let her work. I think I was there with a friend who's like, well, what's going to happen? And it's like, just let her work. And basically what transpired was as soon as the doors opened, she just plowed right in there, but she knew the people who were already in line. So what she would do is basically muscle her way through the people who came late and just tried to sneak in. And these people would literally, because she's a big size and she just is not afraid to use it, and she's pushing people out of the way. She knows the people that were dedicated, and so she just motors through, gets the tickets. We are there too, but we're like just following her, trying to keep up with her. And then as soon as she's got the 12:30 ticket, she's like in there just throwing down the coats. And we get kick-ass seats. And she is amazing like that. So now we make it into the theater, and I'm feeling not bad for the people who tried to sneak in because they deserved everything they got. I'm not saying she physically beat these people, but she gave them some good shoves and pushes, and as I said, and she even was a protector of the people that, if she saw somebody butting in line to somebody that was in front of us, she'd move them for them too and let those people go ahead because they earned it. So now we're in the theater and it's starting to fill up, and I remember just feeling this is amazing. We waited all afternoon. We were a little tired. It was getting, just past midnight and, getting ready for the 12:30 show. But, we were still the energy was still there because you could feel the electricity in the air. All these people just wanting to see Star Wars. Even the battles that were fought in the lineup are gone because, we're all just, I don't care if you butted in, that's done because we're about to see some new Star Wars stuff. And that played heavily on my mind. And I actually had an anxiety attack just before the movie started. It was about maybe, I'd say 12:15, and I went to the bathroom. And literally in the bathroom, I was splashing water on my face because my heart was racing. I had basically been building up for this for all afternoon, staying in line, but it was now hitting me that I was going to see new Star Wars content for the first time in decade, over a decade. And I started freaking out, and I calmed myself down, got to my seat, maybe 5 minutes too. Now, here's a little thing some of you might not know, and I'm past this now, but back then, I like everybody to have a good time, as in my friends and family. And I don't like them to miss something, and I know we're about to see something epic. And, Dave, my friend Dave, who you've met, he's been a co-host on the show, he always runs out to the bathroom just before. But there was just so many people. I said, Dave, you're not going to make it back in time. You don't want to miss the opening credits. And he goes, yeah, but they'll have the trailers and commercials. I go, Dave, they might not. Because this was back in the day when they were just doing midnight showings. Now they just open movies Thursday, 8 o'clock. It's not as special as it used to be. But this used to be the first movies are going to be shown after, all the movies showed on Thursday. He ran out and he goes, I'll make it out. And I start getting a little bit of anxiety attack because I don't like that. I want my friends to enjoy all this. And he does make it back, just barely, the lights are going out. What saved him is that they made an announcement and said that you're about to see the new Star Wars movie, enjoy, and all this stuff. And everybody cheers when the guy's finished because the lights are coming down. Dave shows up, so I'm feeling good. I've got all my friends with me, and now I feel complete. I'm ready. I dealt with my anxieties. I'm ready to see The Phantom Menace. Well, what happened next is something I think true Star Wars fans can think, and I'm anxious to see if it'll happen again when I go see Force Awakens, because it'll be a younger generation probably in there as well. But basically what happened was everybody was cheering. Everybody was cheering. As soon as they... And I was right. There was no commercials. There was no trailers. They just got right into it. And, they had the triumphant, 20th Century Fox, bum. And, and as that was happening, everybody was just cheering and going wild because we were going to see it for the first time. I can't believe I'm actually tearing up right now. And you didn't think I was heartfelt when I said Star Wars means so much to me. Okay, what happened next blew me away. When the line, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, came up, there was all this cheering at 20th Century Fox, but as soon as it went black, and after Lucasfilms, the audience just, you could hear a pin drop. Everybody just was quiet. And we all read those words. And it was like we were reading them for the first time, or reminded us where we were the first time we read a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Hear a pin drop. And then the orchestra came in and the words Star Wars blasted onto the screen, and everybody just exploded in cheers. And that lull, that moment where we were almost saying grace for what we were about to receive. It was just such a magical moment. Unfortunately, I don't remember seeing that during Attack of the Clones or Return of the Sith. But I am so glad I saw it for Phantom Menace, because it just was like, for one moment, we all knew exactly what to do. Everybody was quiet. Everybody was... And it wasn't like they told you to do that. It was just inspirational, and people did it. And then, of course, we watched Phantom Menace. I was very tired when Jar Jar came up. I was just like, what's this? What's this going on? What's this? It freaked me out a little bit, and I don't even know. I enjoyed the film, but I don't even know if I could. But ironically, the next day I went to see Phantom Menace again because I was at the Center Mall, and me and my friend Dave were walking to go to the mall, and we noticed that there was going to be a Star Wars showing in the afternoon. But, nobody seemed to be, they let the lines in, and we thought, let's see if we can get tickets, and we did, and we wound up seeing it, and I think I started enjoying it then because I think the anxiety and the pressures just got to me, so I actually got to enjoy it more the second time the next day. And as I said, I like the Phantom Menace. I didn't agree with everything. I won't get into a big battle. I want to keep this Star Wars thing friendly, but I could go on a rant about how fans are like so jaded by the prequels. And, and I remind them, I said, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you here. You're older people. A lot of you saw this movie when you were young. And in that time between Jedi and Phantom Menace, there has been so much science fiction, so many movies with good storytelling, visual effects and stuff. How could this movie live up to anything? You're now more mature, everything. And so when a new Star Wars movie comes and you hate it to the fact that you could say something like, this raped my childhood, it's because you're viewing this. You're not the innocent that you were when the first movies came out. You're now educated. You've seen a lot of things. And it just drives me crazy because no movie can live up to that again. But I'm not here to fight that. If you want to fight with me on it, you can write me emails or anything. But I'm over it. I like the prequels. I think they did a good job with them. Yes, they could have changed some things, then I would have been happy with it. But overall, there was so much I loved about it. But see, there again, I could sit and talk about how much I enjoyed The Phantom Menace, but instead it was the experience of getting to see The Phantom Menace that stays with me even more. And that's what Star Wars is. It's about experiences. So, you want to know what I feel about the movies? Well, you pretty much have figured out I love all of them. But what happens when a Star Wars fan has to rank his top 6 movies? I kept going back and forth if I was going to do this because I love them all so much. It's like picking your favorite child. But I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it right after this break. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a movie was released and changed the life of a young boy in so many ways it's almost hard to count. Yes, that boy is me, Devlin. And the movie, of course, I'm talking about is Showgirls. Boy, that movie, that sticks with me. I could teach classes on Showgirls. It's just so bad it's good. It's actually so bad it's great. No, of course I'm not talking about Showgirls. Not now, at least. I'm talking about Star Wars. And everywhere you look, Star Wars is back around. In fact, it's never really left since 1977. And with the new movie just a couple of weeks away, it's time for the Devlin Pirate Radio Show Star Wars Special. Yes, today that's all I'm talking about. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Yes, I know I've probably lost several of you and you're all reaching for the dial, but there's others who love Star Wars just as much as me that hopefully are going to turn up the volume because they're excited about what I have to say. And quite frankly, I'm excited about doing this. You knew it had to be coming. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And I just wanted to do it. I'm getting excited for the new film. I'm probably not as excited as a lot of people are, but I am. I really am. It's building. I can feel it building in me, and I think maybe I've kept it down because of that. Of course, I'm talking about the new movie Star Wars The Force Awakens, Episode 7. I honestly never thought we'd see this day come. Because after the prequels, it seemed like George Lucas was done and we were never going to see it. And now, of course, George Lucas sold the rights to Disney and has passed the torch over to other people. And it didn't take them long to announce another one. And it just still seems like yesterday that they said, yeah, we're going to put together another one and we're going to try to get some of the old faces back. And now here we are, closing in on it. And it's very exciting. What Star Wars means to me. I saw it in the original year it came out in, 1977. You know, forgive me if I've told this story before, but my father and I used to have a weekly ritual where he would take me to the movies. And, you know, we saw all the Disney films and kids' films, and we'd only see G-rated films. I was 9 years old when Star Wars came out, and, you know, my parents were just very overprotective, and that's why I didn't get to see a lot of PG films right away. But when Star Wars came out, everybody was talking about it. It was all over the place. I knew it's something I had to see. But it didn't fall under our G category, which is ironic, because now I think it would. The first Star Wars absolutely would be a G-rated movie now. But anyhow, I begged my father. I said, Dad, please, can we see Star Wars? Can we see Star Wars? And he was humming and hawing about it, and then my brother saw it, and he said, Dad, he can handle it. It's nothing scary. There's nothing. He's going to love it. And so my dad took me down to the Center Mall Cinemas, and we went to a matinee, and I remember going to the theater just so excited that, you know, as much as I love the kids' movies, I felt like I'm going to see a grown-up film. This is meant for grown-ups. And boy, was I blown away. I think you talk to a lot of people, and that opening shot where the battleship just, goes over your head, and it continues and keeps going, and just the epic size of it. And because I'm 9, it's even bigger. And I remember just being in awe, because as much as all the magic that Disney offered me in their animated films, or all the stuff I saw in other, live action films that were G-rated, nothing could compare to the world that I was going to be introduced to. Not to mention, I wasn't a big science fiction fan when I was a kid, so I didn't watch, Star Trek on TV until later on. So to see this world come to life with its droids and the alien creatures, going to the cantina, it was just a feast for the eyes and everything. And of course, just like every other person, I became obsessed with it. I know not everybody became obsessed, but the thing that always blows me most away about Star Wars is not only the fan love for the series, but if you look at Hollywood right now, and I'm not just talking actors or directors, I'm talking like people who do visual effects, people who do, sound, cinematography, you'd be amazed by the amount of people that were inspired by Star Wars. So some people throw Star Wars off as, oh, it's just a movie. But it's not. That first Star Wars affected so many people's lives. And, of course, eventually its sequels, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I know a lot of people diss the prequels, but even them, for the generation that saw them, for little kids who saw Phantom Menace, there might have been some pissy adults saying, they ruined my childhood. But for a whole generation that grew up on Phantom Menace and stuff, they absolutely loved it. The pod racing, everything. When I was a kid, I didn't analyze Star Wars. I just absolutely became obsessed with it. I remember even getting my first figures. The first 2 action figures I got were R2-D2 and Chewbacca. And I was so happy when I got them. I think I got them with my allowance at the Byway. I bought a lot of Star Wars figures at the Byway because I think they were a little cheaper than Sears. And I remember just playing hours with them. Now, for those of you who don't know, Star Wars didn't expect to be that big a hit. So they weren't ready with their merchandising. They were actually pretty late with merchandising. There's actually a really interesting YouTube video, I think it's still up on YouTube, where that Christmas, they didn't have a lot of the toys ready because they were really caught off guard. Now you look at it, merchandising for Star Wars is all over the place. The Force Awakens is just like following through. You're seeing it on cereal boxes, cracker boxes. It's all over the place. And they weren't ready for it in 1977. But on YouTube, there's a video where some kids at Christmas actually got a promise that you will get the action figures when they're available, and you get this cardboard cutout that just kind of... Imagine waking up Christmas morning and getting this cardboard cutout saying, you will be getting these at some point, but just not today. Love, Santa. But it's amazing. It was enough, because it was like a promissory note, and you held, weren't sure how it was going to happen, but you knew you were going to get this. I collected all the Star Wars figures, and I didn't, I'm not going to be wealthy from them, because they came out of the box immediately. I'm still like that with my toys. I'm not a collector like that. I like to look at them. I don't want to see them through an old box. But I was 9 years old. I played with them. And I created new adventures for Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Han Solo and the rest. And I just absolutely adored them. It really inspired me to be creative. I was always a creative kid. I like to draw. I like to, play pretend like everybody else. But Star Wars got me thinking about stories and stuff, even when Empire came out. I remember always following up, like what would happen when Han gets found and stuff, and I'd come up with my own stories. me and my friends, and I'd collect everything I could on Star Wars. You know, I remember getting the Boba Fett figure before I even saw Empire. I didn't do the mail away like you could, but I got it when it hit the stores and just absolutely was mesmerized by the character. And he wasn't foreign to me, because Boba Fett actually is one of the few things that's redeemable about the Star Wars Holiday Special. He actually makes his appearance in that in an animated sequence. Yes, I saw the Star Wars Holiday Special. Come on, I was a Star Wars maniac. I'd watch anything, and if I heard that Star Wars is having a Christmas special, I was sitting there. As a kid, I loved it. I absolutely adored it. I have watched it a couple of times, showing it to people, and it is hard to get through. But I think there is some funny moments, and then there's just some absolutely rip your hair out moments that are horrible. But there's a lot of things to make you laugh. And as I said, Boba Fett technically makes his debut in it. And if that's not enough, they actually kind of predict online pornography too, because there's a scene where Chewbacca's father, grandfather, can't remember, but he actually watches Diane Carroll do a sexy dance, and it actually looks like virtual porn. And, you know, there's no nudity or anything, but hey, they predicted it. But yeah, Art Carney's in it, Harvey Korman. The Harvey Korman sequences are just so hard to get through, and I'm a big Harvey Korman fan. One of my favorite sequences is B. Arthur as one of the waitresses at the bar. And I'm a huge B. Arthur fan, but it's just funny to think that she actually literally works at the Cantina Band on Tatooine and does a whole song number with some of the creatures. If you're a big Star Wars fan, you've probably already seen the Holiday Special. If you're not a big Star Wars fan, you're not going to get anything from it. If you're a young Star Wars fan and just getting into it, yeah, it's like a train wreck. You might want to watch it. Even George Lucas doesn't like to talk about it too much. I think there's some moments, you know, and the big stars all make cameos in it. Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher. She's got one of my favorite moments because Chewbacca's celebrating Life Day with his family, and there's one part where everybody gathers together, and out of nowhere, Carrie Fisher sings this Life Day song that's blatantly a mellow version of the Star Wars theme. I actually have this, I made an MP3 of it from YouTube, so I could actually play it on my Christmas mix, just because it's just gives me smiles, because out of nowhere, Carrie Fisher just starts singing this song. Yeah, that's how big a fan I am. I'm even a supporter. I own a VHS copy of the Star Wars Holiday Special, and I'm proud to own it, even though it's horrible. It also inspired me to create stories. I talked about role-playing in a recent episode, and Star Wars got me into storytelling. You know, when the big reveal comes out in Empire, spoiler alert, but it has been over 30 some odd years, so if you haven't seen it. But when Luke finds out that what happened with his real father, that's like great soap opera writing, you know. I kind of became a respect of soap operas because of it. It's absolutely true. Because, you know, it was an ultimate cliffhanger, you know. You had to wait 3 years to find out what was going to happen to Han and all the others. But when my mother would watch her soaps, I'd respect it, because Star Wars was like a space fantasy soap opera. You know, it showed me how characters could grow. It showed me how storylines could work. And, you know, that's affected me in the way I write or perceive things. So it was actually a really great introduction course. I'm happy I was the age I was when I saw Star Wars. I was at a beautiful age to see all 3 of them. I was 9 when Star Wars came out. I was 12 when Empire came out, and I was 15. And my favorite character is, I was 15 when Return of the Jedi came out. My favorite character is R2-D2, but I also have a real fondness for Luke Skywalker. And I think the reason why is because as I was growing up, Luke Skywalker was growing up, you know. He's this optimistic, young, you know, this young man in the first movie. And he starts learning about life through this adventure. Then in the second movie, he's this aggressive, starting to find out that the world isn't perfect. And, you know, dealing with stuff. And he's training and learning. And he's still headstrong. And then by the last act, he's finally finding out who he is. He's putting the pieces together and facing his fears and his just everything. And I think the ages I saw that in, you know, I was dealing with that, and I really think it helped me. I'm not saying you can't watch it now and see that, but I think those were perfect ages to see the movie in. It's amazing how much I could talk about Star Wars, whether it's like playing with action figures or just how many, you know, just things that have affected in my life. I think if you walk into almost every room in your house, you will see something Star Wars. I'm not a big Star Wars maniac, like that's all I have. But, you know, I have little action figures. I have new figures from the new movie. Some of these characters I don't even know if I'll even like, but I have them. I have a big R2-D2 that my nephew Jonathan gave me, who's remote controlled, and standing next to him is a big size Darth Vader. Which is funny, because when I first saw the Darth Vader, I thought, you know, I'm a Star Wars fan, but who would have something that size in their home? Then when I got the R2-D2, I realized, hey, that's Darth Vader's, you know, kind of proportioned to my R2-D2. And guess what? I became one of those people that had to have that in their house, so that's one of the things you see in the living room. But there's little essence of it all over. Even here in the studio, I look and I've got my box where I keep my pens and pencils and stuff, and that's Star Wars. It's all over my place, and I still get fond memories just seeing the images. You know, just seeing a picture of Han and Chewie just makes me smile, or R2-D2 and C-3PO. You know, I remember, you know, Darth Vader is still very imposing to me. I was very frightened as a kid of Darth Vader. And even seeing him now, there's a bit of that moment, just a moment that I remember how intimidated I am of him. I think he's kind of become more of an icon now. I think people almost worship him now. But I like the fact that I still see him as the villain in some ways. And even though he was redeemed, and trust me, when I saw Return of the Jedi and he redeems himself in the end, I just had tears rolling down my face. Just so thankful that he sacrificed for his son. But as I said, it's a big part of my life in so many ways, and I think it always will be. I can put those movies on and feel just like a kid again, but I can also enjoy it as an adult by seeing how much. And, you know, I love when you talk to people who are Star Wars fans, whether they're, you know, they were new as they were growing, or whether they were original Star Wars fans like me. We all talk about it, and it's not just, oh, remember that part where, you know, they were on the sailing barge, or remember the part in Hoth with, you know, them knocking down the snow walkers. No, what I like is you eventually get to experiences. I have a friend, Nathan Fleet, who's a huge Star Wars fan, and I like when we sat and just started talking about Star Wars, and he was telling me about how he skipped school and wound up on The Spectator. And he became famous for that, you know, kid and his friends who skipped school. And, you know, and then when he went to see Phantom Menace, he brought the newspaper with him, and The Spectator took a new picture of him And it's an amazing story. But I like when you talk to Star Wars fans because it doesn't just become about, your favorite parts of the movie. It becomes about experiences. Like, oh, when I was a kid, I had that Sears exclusive Death Star, which was much better than the real, Mattel, Hasbro, Kenner. Sorry, it was Kenner that did the Star Wars stuff. And I did have the Sears one. At first I was upset because it wasn't the official one. Then I realized it was actually better than the one because it had more rooms and it had a working trash compactor. But what I love is that you start getting the experiences and the feelings and emotions come out. And everybody's touched by certain movies, but then there's some movies that you can tell have affected lives. And Star Wars isn't the only one. It's not the only series that have touched people's lives. But it is the big one. And it is one that's affected a lot of people, including yours truly. And that's why it's all Star Wars on this episode. I told you about my friend Nathan Fleet going to Phantom Menace and getting his picture taken. Kind of a retrospector when he was a kid. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my dealings with the prequels, especially us waiting in line. It became a bit of an adventure of itself before we even saw the movie. I'm going to share that experience next on the Devlin Pirate Radio Show Star Wars Special. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying this special Star Wars edition of my show. I'm Devlin, and we're back to talk more Star Wars in my final segment. And I decided, I was back and forth on this, because I really didn't know if I wanted to do this or not. But I decided, what the hell, it's just pop culture, and next week it could all be a different list. But I decided I'm going to rank the top 6 Star Wars movies in order of my enjoyment of them. And this, again, as I said, it's kind of like taking your children and doing the countdown, because I love all these movies. I love the original trilogy, obviously, and I like the prequels a lot. But it's still hard to say, because, 1 week this could be number 1, and then another week this could be number 1 for different reasons. But I thought, since we're just a few weeks away from The Force Awakens, I'm going to suck it up and count down my top 6 favorites. Now, this is the 6, the ones that have the episode titles in them. I'm not going to rank like the holiday special. It would be at the bottom. Or like the animated Clone Wars movie that hit theaters. These are just going to be the original 6. And, yeah. So let's do this. Coming in at number 6. Should have a drum roll or something. I don't know if that sounds good. We won't skip the drum roll. Coming in at number 6, Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. Again, to call this the worst of the series is horrible because I love the movie. This is where we were introduced to Hayden Christensen as Anakin, and I actually really liked him. A lot of people thought he was really flat, and as an actor, he's very hit and miss with me. I think when he has a right director, you can actually get a really good performance out of him. Check out movies like Takers or I can't remember the one, but Life is a House. I think actually, if he's given a good director, I think he wasn't 100% strong, but he did have some great moments. The moments where he goes after, like, the Tusken Raiders, when his mother is taken in, thing is just so powerful. I think that's in the third one, I'd have to remember. No, maybe it was in the second one. I can't remember. But anyhow, Attack of the Clones is the bottom of my list, and I enjoyed it immensely still. I liked Hayden. I liked so much about this. I think there's just a lot of talk in this one. There is some battle sequences in it, but I just don't think the movie holds up quite as strong. I do like the romance element between Princess Amidala and Anakin. But yeah, if I have to put one at the bottom, it would have to be Attack of the Clones. So, yeah, number 6 is Attack of the Clones. Coming in at number 5, The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. I have seen this movie probably the most out of the prequels, because I saw it a couple times at the theaters. I've watched it a couple times. I even went to this big screen when they were redoing them all in 3D, but the only one that made it to the screen was The Phantom Menace. I like so much about this. Yes, Jar Jar can irritate, and I hate the poo and fart jokes that were added, but Darth Maul and the final battle, the fact that we finally get to see Obi-Wan Kenobi kicking some ass, it just, it has so much going in it. The worlds, like Naboo, and it's just powerful. And as a Star Wars fan, I love those little meetings where you meet people that, they meet for the first time, like Obi-Wan meeting R2. How these are important meetings. Little Anakin meeting, Princess Amidala, which, is going to lead to, the creation of, Luke and Leia, which just powerful things, and that gets me inside. So I think that's why I gave this the upper hand. And the pod race, it kills a lot of time in the movie. It's still fun to watch and stuff, but yeah, I think they could have cut that sequence a little bit. Sorry if you're a big pod race fan. Coming in at number 4, Revenge of the Sith. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh yeah, all the prequels were at the bottom. Well, I've said that. I like the original trilogy. I was young and naive when I saw the original, so yes, they are going to have a bigger impact on me. But don't get me wrong, Revenge of the Sith is so awesome. We only get a bit of the Clone Wars at the beginning, and then the battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which is going to eventually lead to Anakin's demise and the rise of Darth Vader, is everything I hoped it would be. It's this epic battle on that lava planet. The emotions between them are so powerful. Even the evil scenes where, like, you see Anakin coming in with the armies and taking down, like, there's even, like, hints on him destroying kids. Like, you can talk about all the badasses you want in movies, but Anakin kills kids. You don't see it, but it is so implied. It's like just so gripping. And you can feel the darkness. And as I said, the lava, the fight is one of the best fights. It's so well put together and just awesome. So, yes, we're going to put Revenge of the Sith at number 4. Now we get hard, because now I love all 3 of these movies so much that to even have to rank one just slightly lower than the other was just tough. Coming in at number 3, A New Hope. Yes, this one should be really at the top, and in some cases I usually put it at the top. When people say, what's your favorite movie, I usually just say Star Wars. I usually mean all of Star Wars, but just for easier sake, A New Hope is probably number 3. But this is the movie that started it all, and you gotta give it kudos, because if this movie sucked, we wouldn't have the legacy that we have now. But even now I see scenes with Princess Leia putting the plans in R2, and them running with all the lasers firing at them. There's so many images in this. One of the greatest images that I love in the Star Wars series is when Luke is on Tatooine and he's looking up at the moons and just dreaming of one day leaving that planet. Every kid dreams of, running away from home and wondering where life will take you. And even today I get a lump in my throat when I see that scene, because, I remember how innocent I was when that was, and I didn't know where life was, and now I've seen where life takes me. And my adventures might not be as grand as Luke Skywalker's, but I look back and say, I've led a good life. And knowing that Luke is, just about to embark on meeting people that are going to change his life. I know what that's all like now. So Star Wars is just amazing, and it's got one of the weakest lightsaber duels, but in some ways it's the most powerful because of the whole, Obi-Wan dying. And there was just so much magic and belief and fantasy and space. Just, it kills me to have to put it at number 3. Coming in at number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I know most people would put this as their number 1 movie. I think it's a phenomenal film. I think it's a good film, even if it wasn't part of this trilogy. I think they take a lot of chances in this film. Like, they have a formula that works in New Hope. And in the second one, they take big chances. They start with this epic battle on Hoth. And then the first thing they do is they take the group and separate them. Now, what we don't know when we first watch is they separate them for the whole movie. Luke is not going to see Leia and Han again until the 3rd installment. And that is a big, daring move. And, and then we get all this epic stuff. Han and Leia head to Cloud City, and, Luke's on Dagobah meeting up with Yoda, and there's just so much, Han and Leia are starting their romance, and Luke is starting his training, and there's just so much power that this movie could have easily fallen apart, but they took the chance, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And it comes off very Shakespearean in a lot of ways. And I love the movie immensely, and not too many movies that leave me with a cliffhanger that really I can't wait. And I waited 3 years. But, the whole Han and Carbon freeze, and Princess Leia saying, "I love you," and Harrison Ford, ad-libbing and saying, "I know." And it's so, they're so into their characters, it's just phenomenal. But sadly, I have to put Empire Strikes Back in the number 2 spot, because my number 1, I was so emotional through the last episode. Well, at the time I thought it was the last episode. And that means that Return of the Jedi is my number 1 film. Right from the opening sequences in Tatooine, where Luke and Leia come to rescue Han, to the sailing barge fight, which is probably one of my favorite sequences. As a kid, I just don't remember how they were going to get out of this. And there they are in these sailing barges with this giant stomach creature in the middle of the sand, and, and I'm like, I don't know how this is all going to play out, and just the whole, cannons on the ships, and R2 shooting the lightsaber for Luke to catch. It was so amazing. And then you go into, Luke trying to find out answers. You've got, the powerfulness. And, quite frankly, as much as they can digitally make lightsaber battles better now, over the top, I still think Return of the Jedi has the best lightsaber duel in it. Now, actually, I'm going to correct that. I think Empire's is a little better, but the emotional impact in the Return of the Jedi is powerful. Yes, Empire has that one line that just blows you all away, but the whole Darth and the Emperor trying to turn Luke dark is just so powerful and so strong. I can't say enough about it. And, I like the Ewoks. I don't care what anybody says. I like the Ewoks uprising against the mighty Empire. I think I've talked about how we praise villains too much, but I still like a good hero winning, and there's a lot of satisfaction when the Ewoks, take over the village. When Darth, I've mentioned it before, but when Darth has to choose between the Emperor and his son, and there's that moment where you really think he's going to just let Luke die. The moment that Darth Vader turns on the Emperor, I remember I just couldn't stop crying. I just thought it was so powerful. You know, because everybody wants to have a dad that's their hero. And Luke got that. And then lost it. And I remember coming out of the theater with my friend Craig, and I just, tears rolling down my face, and he was like, stop crying, stop crying. Come on, we were 15-year-old boys. He was even younger than me, and he's like, stop crying or I'm gonna punch you so people think that that's why you're crying. But I was just so overwrought with emotions, I couldn't. To me, it was just so powerful, and it still holds up whenever I see that moment. And for that, I have to give Return of the Jedi the edge, because, you know, there was so much in it that gave me so much joy, and then to end on such an emotional high was perfect. Even the Ewok Village song, which I was not a fan of, you know, Ewok Chiki Chiki, but think about, I kind of liked in the special editions where they eliminated that, because I thought it was just silly. But you know what, I don't care. I was in such a good mood, those little Ewoks can sing their hearts out. So anyhow, there you have it. I ranked my Star Wars. Now, I'm quite interested to see where the new one's going to rank. I haven't been... The first couple trailers came out, and my excitement's been building, but I was worried because it's not building as big as I thought it would. Until I saw the international trailer. They released 2 teaser trailers, and then they released the North American trailer. And the North American trailer I thought was good, but I still felt... I like that they're not showing too much, and they're not revealing too much of the story. But the international trailer gave little hints at the story without giving anything away. But they actually got me to a character investment in some of these new characters. Yeah, I got emotional when in the second teaser Han comes out and says, "We're home, Chewie." How could you not? There he is. Han Solo, and you don't see it as Harrison Ford. You know he's in full character mode. But I'm starting to get a sense of it. Now that we've bought our tickets online and we're all ready for it, we've got a date, everything's set. It's starting to build. It's starting to build. But I'm kind of glad in some ways that it's slowly starting to build. I remember in the first trailer, BB-8, it was just crazy. Like, he was just running and like... And I was like, what the hell was that? And now I'm actually endeared by BB-8. I remember when they did the Star Wars convention, they actually brought him on stage, and I was mesmerized that this round body could actually like move on its own with the head just kind of like dangling off. But when I actually seen that it was a fully functioning robot, I was like blown away. And then I became endeared to him, and I'm not a big fan of those little pop guys that you can buy. They're the big series. But I like the BB-8, and Mike finally found one for me and actually bought it for me. And I love looking at him. He's got kind of a little bobbly head. And I don't even know if I'm going to like this character, but I get the feeling I will. And as the trailers went, Kylo Ren is just blowing me away. I'm mixed on the Luke stuff because I'm happy they haven't showed him, and I'm sad they haven't showed him, because Luke, as I said, was one of my favorite characters. R2, probably one of my favorites, but he was in the prequels, he was everywhere, so it's nice to see Luke again. And they've already shown Leia and Han, but I like that they're hiding from me, but at the same time I'm dying to see him because he means so much to me in my youth. I know there'll be a side of me that little kid will be sitting in those seats on the first weekend and just getting ready to love something. Now, it's got a lot to live up to because I'm not that little kid anymore. And I've only been in the theater a couple of times since then that have it. Even seeing the prequels, I didn't have the same magical feeling, but I have seen movies since then that have. In the last 10 years, I can think of 2 movies that have given me the same feeling that I had when I was a kid. The movies have to be emotional, they have to have some humor in them, but not going too far, and they have to have action. Those are the three things I'm looking for. Now, I've got them from a lot of movies, but two stand out for me that I'm going to hope that they stay on that level. Number one is the Star Trek reboot. And J.J. Abrams was behind that, and since he's the guy directing this, I got good hope that he can do this. I was never a huge Star Trek fan, but that first movie I saw in the theater 5 times because it just packed a punch. It had action, it had emotion, it made me laugh. The other movie that did it was Guardians of the Galaxy. I came out of there and I felt like a little boy just seeing Star Wars for the first time. Again, it had the emotional impact, it had comedy, and it had thing. And the Guardians of the Galaxy also had characters that were endearing, even when they weren't endearing, like Rocky Raccoon. You know, he was rough around the edges, but you learned to love him. I'm hoping Star Wars Awakens will catch me with the same magical feel. If I come out entertained, that's good enough. But I am hoping for something more than that. Anyhow, I've had a great time talking Star Wars, and if you want to share your stories with me, by all means, I'd love it. May the Force be with you. It's time to wrap things up. I will talk to you all very, very soon.